Hello and welcome to this second tutorial on adding CSS to your web page. In the first tutorial we had downloaded a style sheet and then connected that style sheet to each page of our website up in the head area of each page. And so you can see that coded here, and then you can see the effects of it over here in this other window. So in this part of the tutorial I'm going to show you what to do with the second half of the style sheet, and that is to add what's called divs to your web page. And divs are really just divided areas of content that help lay out your web page. And you can see this one has four different divs. The first one is called the header div. And what that's going to do is it is going to be centered within my page. You can see that this code right here is telling it to be a width of 950 pixels, a height of 100 pixels, and have a certain background color. And so what's going to happen is when I code this into my site, it's going to display in my web page. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back to my index page, and right here in my body, I'm first going to go ahead and delete any kind of extraneous attributes and values that I won't need now that I'm using CSS for my style. I'm going to go ahead and add the div ID of header. Okay, I'm going to close it right away. So what I just did is I told the browser to open up a div, and I told it to identify the header div that I had created over in the style sheet. So the browser is going to go down to the header and it's going to do what I told it to do here in the style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'll refresh it in the browser, and you can see that's exactly what it did. It went to the style sheet and it followed the instructions to make a width of 950, make it a height of 100, and give it a background color that it's kind of a red. And these lines of code make sure that it's centered. So you can see that as I make it larger or smaller, it's still being centered within the web page. So the next one is my navigation. You can see that it's denoted with the # nav. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to my index page, and it's basically going to surround my unordered list. So div ID equals nav. And then I'm going to go ahead and close it after the nav, because this is my nav, or after my list closes, because this is my navigation. And not only is it going to do certain things to that particular area of my HTML, but it's also going to search if I have a UL in that navigation div, then it's going to do these things to it. And if I have list items within that UL, it's going to do these things to it. In particular, aside from the padding, what it's going to do is this line of code has taken away the bullet points. You can still see them here. I haven't refreshed my browser yet, but it's going to take these away. And then another thing it's going to do is it's going to display them in line instead of as a list up and down. And then it's also going to give it a certain background color. It's going to be 950 pixels wide and 40 pixels tall. It's also going to search for any links that are in this navigation div, and it's going to do certain things to those as well. And if you look here, obviously I've got links, link tags within the UL and within my navigation here. So you'll be able to see all those effects take place when I refresh my browser. It changed the link colors, it changed the spacing, it changed the alignment, and it gave it this background color of kind of a dark blue. So that's everything that basically from here on down, this is all controlling my navigation. Not just the navigation div, but also anything that's in that div, including ULs, LIs, and links. Now the third div that I have is called the section div, and basically everything else in my site will go into that section div. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the index page, and right after I close that nav div, I'm going to do a div ID equals section, and then I'm going to close that right here. And I'm going to make sure that lines up. I will save it and refresh, and you can see not much has happened, but it did line up with the rest of the divs. And now the very last one that I have in my style sheet is the footer div, and that's going to appear at the very bottom. So I'm going to go back here, I'm going to go div ID equals footer, and then I'll just do a site last updated here. Then I'll close that, and okay, go ahead and save it, and close my div, save, and refresh. Now it worked, but now there's a little bit of an issue here within the style sheet, and that is you can see that the footer is only going as high as my text goes. And so I'm going to go ahead and want to make sure that my style sheet, right here in the section div, you can see that the height is auto. It's an auto height, and what that means is it's going to go as tall as the text is. And you can see the text stops and then the footer starts, and it's doing what I told it to do. But what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and change that to 500 pixels so that it doesn't cut off my picture there, and there you have it. You may want to change that to something smaller or larger depending on what you want your site to look like, but that in a nutshell is how you add those divs. There are only 4 of them. You've got your header, you've got the navigation, you've got the section, and then you've got the footer. You'll notice nothing in my code is between those divs, so you can see if I isolate my code here, I've got the header, then I jump right to the navigation, okay, then I jump into the section, and then the last is the footer. See, there's nothing in between those divs. Every single piece of text, image, links, everything is within some type of div. And so that is basically how you set up your site using divs. Now, as you go through these divs, you can change background colors. So if I want to change the background color of my header, I would go to background color in my CSS, and I would change this. For example, if I just wanted to change it to a red, go ahead and save it, refresh. You couldn't see much of a change because it was already a certain color of red. But say, for example, I wanted to change my navigation to red. I would do FF0000, save it, and you can see now my navigation changed colors. So you can see that you can also do lots of different customization within the CSS code. Again, I recommend going to the CSS page from the w3schools.com. That will really help you. And also, you're going to want to make sure that not only are you adding these divs around your content to to your index page, but you want to make sure you do the same to every single page. First, making sure that it's linked to the style sheet, and then secondly, adding each div in the appropriate place. And so if I had a cool logo, I would put that up here. For now, I could maybe just put an H1 that says welcome, and then I will close that, and then you can see that my index page will have a big old welcome, and it does not show that up there in the header for some reason. There it is, it's red. It's because it's red on red, and that's not a good idea. But anyway, it is there. Alright, so that's how you add CSS to your website.